Okay, Chairman Craven.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here to testify in a bill that I filed, House Bill 5532. Some of you probably read the cheat sheet description of this bill that I often do at the end of the presentation that Ledge Counsel gives us. But in this instance, I'd like to give you the 39 years practicing law version of what this is about. In the district court, when someone gets in trouble, they are being accused, and they're adjudicated there, they're being accused of committing a misdemeanor. Misdemeanors can stay on your record and be a difficult problem for you with employment, with education, with a lot of other things, particularly if anything that involves a background check. So one of the great things that can happen if you did something wrong is that the court can decide to file the bill. And I've heard judges over the years that I've practiced law say that to the defendants, this is like we're putting the case on a shelf for a year. And if you stay out of trouble, then we'll take it off the shelf and we'll rip it up and shred it, and it'll be gone. But one of the things that happens during that 1 year, oftentimes, depending on what it is that the person's been accused of, and they're eligible for this filing. And by the way, it comes with an expungement as well for the computer records if you successfully complete that year. But sometimes they put conditions. For example, if someone damaged some property, well, they might want you to pay restitution. Or if someone needed counseling, then they would want you to do the counseling during the course of that year. And there are other conditions like community service, which has become popular over the last 10 or 15 years and is often included by the General Assembly in punishments or sentencing aspects of criminal law. But a filing is not probation, so the probation department doesn't get involved. Well, who supervises them, these people that are on these filings, to make sure they do what they're supposed to do so that the judge giving them the break gets the benefit of the bargain that they're going to end up doing the counseling that he or she thought should have happened and would be helpful in helping them learn a lesson and turn their life around. It's an organization called Justice Assistance. They're volunteers. It's a nonprofit. Their source of income comes from fees that these folks pay, but it doesn't add up all the time. And so because Justice Assistance is, especially in, for those of you who've been around here a few years like myself, you remember the bills that I touted about 3 or 4 years ago called Justice Reinvestment Commission. We're trying to give people a break. We're trying to help people. Punishment in records of that punishment are not always the best way to deal with it. People should get a second chance. And in this computer world, you don't get a second chance if you get a record. So Justice Assistance comes in and they do what they do. They supervise you. They make sure that you've done the counseling. You'll meet with them. There's a $30 a month fee, I think, where they get to collect some money to pay for those services. But they're doing the job technically, not legally, but technically they're doing the supervising that otherwise would be done by probation. And if you were on probation, you'd have a record that would last for the year of the probation and an additional 5 years, 6 years in total. And in some instances, if you were looking to get an FBI background check, it doesn't go away. They know it's there. And if you lie about it, then and I know in one instance, I know someone who was kicked off out of the State Police Training Academy class because he had a filing, but or rather probation, and they knew it was there even though it had been expunged. So the long story short is, this bill requests that the fees that are paid, the fines that are paid, the court costs that are paid to the district court, that 10% of that money be designated to fund justice assistance. And in my mind, it will obviously help them do a better job with more people, because I believe that these types of first-time or maybe even second-time entry into the criminal justice system for, pain in the neck stuff that, I often talk about the district court. I've been a district court prosecutor for various municipalities for over 20 years. And I say that most of the people that are there because they're getting F in life. They're flunking. They're doing foolish things. They're drinking too much. They're using drugs. They're writing bad checks. They're assaulting people. They're using petty drugs or possessing petty drugs. They're not getting along. There's no discipline. Justice assistance provides that without having to use the probation department, which has the ancillary bad aspect of creating a criminal record. So this would allow not only more filings to happen if the judge adjudicates, because sometimes justice assistant can't step up to the plate. They got too many, and I'd like to see them more available as a tool. And if that were the case, there'd be less cases on probation, which means the state is paying substantially less money than the 10% of whatever the $100 fee is. So I think it makes logic, it makes sense. And the last thing I would want to do, and I know the person, I don't know if he wants me to talk about it. He works at Justice Assistance. His last name is Horan. And good kid, has been doing it for like 10 years. And he sees financial problems for this organization. And the worst thing we can do, at least for the global fixing of these types of problems, petty district court criminal cases, is to see justice assistants go out of business because they can't afford to continue to exist. And then, we'd either have to fix it with some emergency amount of money. In this instance, I think it's okay to have the folks that are taking advantage of these breaks pay for it, but there's an additional source of income from those fees that they pay the district court, where the district court doesn't have to use its services to supervise those people who are getting that break for that year. So I hope that was my more layman's version of the district court and the petty crime type stuff, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, are there any questions from Rep? I almost say Rep Edwards, but I don't know what your real title is now. I know it's a big one.
Jay.
Jay, yeah, no. Yes, it's his new title.
Chairman.
Yeah, okay.
What's the rough order of magnitude of these fines that you're talking about, the gross total?
It wouldn't be fines, Jay. It would be, because a fine would then be it would be court costs, or it could be, some other. We have a victims indemnity fund, and we actually fund that a lot by saying, "Hey Jay, or I'll say some relative of yours, you want to get rid of this case? Make a voluntary contribution to the victims indemnity fund." So there would be 10% of all that stuff that would go to justice assistance, and I would say it's probably $15 at most that would constitute that 10%.
What's the gross you're looking at per annum overall? So that's what I'm trying to get at. What's the rough order of magnitude of money that's going to come out of what the court system right now is collecting?
I would say somewhere between 200 and 300,000.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman.
Quite welcome. I'll go to Rep Diaz first. Oh, you want to go? Okay, Rep Diaz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Craven, I don't understand too much about court fees and everything, but it's something something that I feel like I need to ask question.
Sure.
Can you please help me to understand the justice assistant is a program or is an agency? How things work?
It is a nonprofit agency that is not associated with the state of Rhode Island. They pay no money. It actually, it has been around for probably about 30 years. It was founded by someone who felt as though there was a need for this, and I think he just recently retired as its executive director. And it's filled an enormous gap where the probation department would have otherwise been charged with at least making some attempt to supervise people, again, creating a criminal record, because if you got probation, then it would be considered a criminal record. So they're doing it as volunteers. So they're the solution to a problem of how to give someone a break when they need a break the first time they go into the criminal justice system. And I think that, we all made mistakes when we were growing up. Some of them in my day were there was an immediate punishment by someone named Dad. And he came home and he laid the wood to you, and then that was the punishment. But some people, end up, for whatever reason, in the criminal justice system doing stupid things. And they need a break. And this allows them to be supervised, not just, okay, pat them on the head and let them go, but they do something to account for it without creating a criminal record.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Craven. Is the only one agency providing those services?
Yes.
And it's also the bill that we have in front of us today is allocating money just for that agency. It's
Yeah.
no opportunity for another one that maybe we have in Rhode Island or somebody come out with the idea. And the reason I asking the question is because people of color are those that are suffering more and need more assistance from this agency. So I'm trying to get a better sense that we allocated between $200,000 and $300,000 for one agency outside the state. And I don't mean I'm against it. I just try to understand the genesis and the logic and to see if we can keep those money in Rhode Island. So thank you so much.
This is the only agency that I'm aware of that the courts have ever referred filings to for supervision. It's the only one that exists. It doesn't mean that another couldn't exist, but the reason it was referred to in the bill as justice assistance, it wasn't to isolate them for a single benefit. They're the only ones doing the work. And in that absence, in your idea of maybe there'd be a second one, this funding source might give them some of that incentive, because justice assistance raises a lot of money through its own fundraising and philanthropic organizations. They honor somebody in the criminal justice system that has distinguished themselves every year over at the Marriott and charge people a couple $100 to go and have a little tiny sandwich and something to drink. And they use that money obviously towards paying salaries and for the services that they offer. So there could be another organization out there, and I don't think they would be, justice assistants would be opposed to that. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Fred Barros, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Craven, and I commend you for this. I mean, I didn't really know that these folks existed, because I think there's a lot of good that could be had from an agency such as this, particularly given the fact that communities of color are disproportionately represented in the system.
Yep.
Now, how does one go about accessing? Who makes the determination whether this person gets a filing or not?
The judge.
Okay.
The judge does. And
that's, I'm sorry.
the district court judge that you're in front of. And your lawyer, in this instance, if you were talking about people in the inner city, more likely than not, and I'm just speaking statistically, the public defender would say, Judge, this is a first-time offender. He's a good person. Yeah, he's got some, loose, tattered, clothes on, and maybe he's not being supervised, or maybe he's not going to school, or whatever, hanging around with bad people, but I think he could deserve a break. And the judge will usually give it some thought, say, maybe ask the lawyer a couple questions, maybe ask the defendant a couple questions, and then say, okay, we're going to let you do some community service. And then they'll pick something, for example, that might make sense. If you were, what do they call the graffiti thing? Tagging. If you were tagging things, well, guess what? The Central Falls Public Works Department is going to have you cleaning tagged areas in the city of Central Falls, and suffer the wrath of the person that runs that place.
If I could continue on that line of questioning, Chairman Craven. So, having said that, so the judge makes that determination, right?
Yes.
And based on what criteria that whatever criteria he deems necessary, or is there a rubrics that they follow?
There is I wouldn't say, brick wall rubrics, but the first part you got to go through is, do you qualify? Do you have a prior criminal record? And if you do, then under very few circumstances will you be allowed to have a case filed. Sometimes they allow you to leave of court to go expunge a record and then create the opportunity as a first offender to get a filing, but that's legal maneuvering. But it's the second part that there's wide discretion, where a judge basically almost acts in a parental manner and looks at a young person, it's usually young people, and says, or people that are troubled, acting like young people, and saying, this is what I think you should be doing. You should be getting drug treatment, and so we're going to ask you to go to Kodak or the place of your choice, and you're going to do urine tests randomly for the next 3 months. And justice assistance is going to make sure and report back to the court, because I'm setting it down for a review in 3 months, to make sure that you were clean of drugs or alcohol for the last 3 months. And it could be any number of things. They're going to make sure that you're at school. So the justice assistant is going to go to your school, and they're going to make sure that you didn't miss any class, that you weren't taking any time off, and that your grades are respectable, that you brought them up. Whatever it is that I think substitutes for, what used to be in the past, that your parents just punished you.
And so to that end, so what's the demographic like? I mean, what are the people who are in this, this filing group that is with this organization? What's the makeup?
Runs the gamut. It runs the gamut. I remember when I first left the Attorney General's office, I went to work for a Boston-based law firm, and it was amazing that the number of people that who were related to or kids of the lawyers that worked in Boston that would end up getting in trouble in Newport on Friday and Saturday night. And so I'd be down there saying, yeah, I know he did this, he did that, he did the other thing, but he's got a suit on, he's a good kid. How about a filing? That's what, as a criminal lawyer, I would do that. And then it could be someone who you're really trying to look at them and say, there's a lot of factors going on in this person's life. And it might be a more severe crime. And you'd look at it and say, Judge, and we'd ask the judge, look at this as, don't give this person any more impediments to being successful in life that he already has. Don't give him a criminal record. Let's give him a break. Let's see if he can, and without supervision, it's unlikely that would happen. Justice assistance provides that supervision so that the court can feel comfortable, and again, that defendant can be successful, that he really will or she really will do the drug testing or do the community service or do the counseling.
Now, I asked all these questions simply because I said, if we look at our criminal justice system, black and brown people are overly represented. And if there is these things in place, why is that so?
I would say there's an innate prejudice in many instances. After 39 years of doing this, I think I have a right to say that statistically, and that there are less favorable break-type decisions made in favor of people of color than people that have white like me, and that's a fact. So,
thank you for your candor, Chairman. Thank you.
Well,
Chairman.
I think the next thing is, and I say to myself, not to the members of this committee, what are you going to do about it? Sometimes I do something about it every day if I'm involved with it, and a lot of times over the last 8 years, I've tried to do something about it here as a legislator.
It is rather frustrating, but yes, and I will commend you for your effort. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you for the exchange. Rep. Nardone, please.
Good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, thanks.
I just have a quick question. You
Yep.
want to take 10% of the court fines. Is there a surplus of court fines?
No, actually, technically, the court fines are turned into the general fund. They're not like reserved for, we can spend this as any way we want to. It's a revenue source for the state of Rhode Island. So yes, there would be 10% of monies that otherwise would go into the general fund, whatever that might be. And the answer to that revenue shortfall might be, and I don't suggest that we put justice assistants on the state payroll as a semi-agency. I think that maybe there'd be a corresponding increase in funds of some nature, or isolated as a specific quote-unquote justice assistance fund. In drunk driving cases, for example, and I digress only for the purposes of telling you that in drunk driving cases, there are about 5 or 6 different specialty assessments. The highway assessment, the drug and alcohol, the hospital records. There's like 5 of them that you pay, and one's $20, one's $45, and that might be the best way to deal with it. But we have to establish the fact that there would be 10% from the district court coming from some source of assessments and court costs that the district court assesses.
Yeah, because my fear would be that they would just up the fines, because you're just reprioritizing the funds from the fines. Instead of going into the general fund, now you're sending them off to this justice, what is it? I'm sorry.
Justice assistance.
Justice assistance. And I'm afraid that the knee-jerk reaction would be that we'll just have to increase the fines because we're coming up with a shortfall this year. I'm looking at that as a downstream effect, and I just was, have you looked into that as maybe a moral hazard?
Well, your point is well taken. And I think if I look at it in reference to the math, there definitely will be a less money to, if my estimate is correct, to $200,000 or $300,000 in the general fund next year or the year after, whenever this is implemented. But I also look at it from, and this is like the businessman point of view, a dollar is a dollar, whether it's in my pocket or your pocket. I want to know where it's going to go. And in this instance, a dollar saved is a dollar. And I believe that justice assistance helps us as a state save money on the implementation of justice in the district court, and at the same time giving people breaks, because and I have no statistical data other than I've been around for a while to say this, but if you give someone a criminal record, they're more likely to be costly as to how they're dealt with the next time they're arrested, whether they're a violator, whether they do some time in, a couple of 14 days in the prison waiting a violation hearing, and then it's, they're given another suspended sentence, and now they've got another problem, or the loss of a job, or not being able to qualify. I know down in my district, some great career opportunities for people who have high school educations at Electric Boat. They won't take you with a criminal record, period. I know. No marijuana in your system, no criminal record. But if somebody could leave a situation where you were kind of, drifting, and get a job where you're making like $28 an hour, you have a pension and full benefits, that's a life. But they won't take you. So as a district court prosecutor, I often recommend these things. I say, Judge, give him a break. Sometimes I dismiss the case. I've actually had situations where I say to somebody who I believe, and it doesn't necessarily have to be someone who has great needs, but someone who I know has got troubles with, say, alcohol or drugs, and I'll say, do you think that, I asked a lawyer that represents him, could you do me a favor? Would you let me talk to him? You can be here, but let me talk to that person for a minute. Yeah, okay. I said, do you think that drugs and drinking is a big problem? Well, come on, be honest. Yeah, it is, yeah. Okay. And you don't want this, drunk driving charge you don't want it to ruin your life. Yeah. How about if we continue it for 3 months and you go to AA meetings and I know that you've gone, I want you to prove to me you've gone, and I want you to go 5 times a week and come back to me with a sign-in sheet with all the people that were chairing the meetings that you went to. And then maybe we'll talk about dismissing this case. And I've had, tremendous success. Some of it I don't know about, and some of it, it runs. I run into it at Walmart 10 years later with somebody who said, "You don't remember me, but this is my kids and my wife, and you gave me an opportunity to keep the job and that I don't drink anymore." That's a win. Very few things we can do in life to save a life, but
Hey, thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Rep. Bella Wilkinson, please. I'm sorry. We have Chairman Amore who's on the line. I see you there, young man. I'm sorry I missed you. You're up.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Craven, for introducing this. I obviously don't have the same criminal justice experience that Chairman Craven does, not even close, but I am very familiar with justice assistance. And I can say that, this is the perfect example of a very valuable public-private partnership. And if justice assistance did not exist and went by the wayside, we would have a gaping hole in the criminal justice system here in Rhode Island. It is a valuable part of a functioning criminal justice system. And so the question I have to Chairman Craven is, and this is just to clarify, justice assistance is already receiving state funding as it is. This is just a different, pass-through for that funding. Is that correct? And if not, can you clarify that for us? Thank you, Chairman.
Most of the money comes from the fees that people pay. But sometimes they can't pay the fees, and there are pockets of money in the state that the court system helps pay for that. And I'm sure there are also legislative grants that I'm unaware of specifically that they get. But I can tell you I've been told, without an additional funding source, it's either cut back or go out of business. And in both instances, I really see, and it's not hyperbole, I don't think. I really see a life or lives being affected by not making this commitment to this organization, which surprisingly, not only is it successful, but they're a nonprofit. They're volunteers. They're in the sense that they're people who go out and raise money to do this work that really is technically, I think it's the state's business. If we're in the businesses of accusing someone, we also should be in the business of rehabilitating, because if we read the statutes perfectly, and I know Leader Philippe knows that, the purpose of the criminal justice system is to punish and to rehabilitate. And we've got to be part of the rehabilitation process. And that's what justice assistance does, is not only does it give us an opportunity to supervise someone for that year, but they take the responsibility away from probation, and therefore we don't need to give someone a conviction. We just need to give them a filing for a year or a 1-year timeout. And in that way, you accomplish any number of goals that will cause this person to be on the straight and narrow, or at least much more so than before they walked in the door of the district court.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Rep. Bella Wilkinson, please.
No.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Craven, so the program sounds to me very much like vet court.
Yeah.
And if you look at the statistics from the National Institute of Justice, in Rhode Island, the rate of recidivism is 44% after 1 year, 68% are arrested for a new crime within 3 years. This is in our regular court system, and 77% within 5 years arrested for a new crime. And for all that I was able to find, the rate of recidivism for vet court is 6% or less. I mean, it just seems to me that a dollar in this case spent is not a dollar. It's actually a savings of a tremendous amount of money because of the multiplier effect of the program.
Yep.
Did you look at the possibility of creating a restricted receipts account, or do you just not want to go in that direction?
I did not look at that possibility. That's more of how we deal with it financially, and I'll admit that I'm not as familiar as the folks in this room on how to deal with restricted accounts. I know it's another accounting and another source of, making sure the money goes to a certain place and it's kept there, and if that's what would make sense is in the structure of state government, then that's fine with me. And how they would, I'll be frank with you, I didn't think that at the end of each week that the district court would be writing checks to justice assistants saying, you made, whatever, $500 this week, and here's the money. I didn't know how they would go about doing it. It's the concept that I always think this is the way I think anyways. I don't expect any of you have a weird mind like mine is. I want to figure out if we can do it first. And if we can do it and we're committed to it, we'll figure out the details.
Well, for what it's worth, I'm highly in support of this bill.
Thank you.
And I think that it will definitely has the possibility of reaching across generations and will finally interrupt that loop of going back and forth with the recidivism. I think we have to start to invest, and I understand that the prison system is either for retribution or for, what's the word that I'm looking for? Oh my goodness, I just had the word, the tip of my tongue. That rehabilitation, thank you. That's the hammer in me. I can't reach for that word. It's typically for rehabilitation or retribution. I think we need, as a state, to make a decision on what we want to do. And investing in our residents sometimes includes investing in those people who felt that their next step was on a criminal path. We've got to do something, and if it's too late for the parents, we have to think about the children and the grandchildren and just break that cycle. Thank you for your work on this.
Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Just for the record, we do have written testimony from our justice assistants, just so you'll know. Are there any more questions of the... I'm sorry. Rep. Quattrochi?
Yes, Chairman. I just want to be recognized as president and vote yes on the holding.
Okay, gotcha. And Rep. O'Brien, I see you waving at me. Did you have a question?
I want to make a statement, Chairman. I just want to make a statement that I believe in this bill. I believe Chairman Craven this bill has been long overdue. As a truancy officer and a teacher, you have my full support. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions of the sponsor, please? Okay, thank you very much. So that would end the hearing on this particular bill, and good luck with that.
Thanks.
I think it's well worth it. Okay. Yeah. Okay.